Annenberg Media.
Try some of this, huh? Pilau rice. Pilau rice. Try. Beta. Oh, yes. Eat this. What is it? Beta. What's this rubbish? Eat this. Oh, lovely. Beta. Oh, beta.
I seem to have stumbled into theatre in much the same way as I kind of stumbled into thinking about being a migrant. Both those stumbles have now glued into each other. Theatre essentially is about reinventing yourself, imagining a space, imagining a time, imagining a people, and going on a journey for 2 hours into this imagined world. I live very much as a result of being a migrant in a kind of imagined space, a space in the heart which is the sense of home.
But the important thing is that it gives you variations with those three.
Beta! Oh, Beta! You're looking so cute today, huh? Give us a cute smile. Let us see your dimples.
Tara was born in the heat of 1976. And the heat was the anger of the killing of a young Asian boy in Southall. And anger led also to a kind of desperate search for meaning. What are we doing here? Why shouldn't we be here? What is the meaning of our lives here as this sort of mixed salad children? And I think at the end of the day, it was then and it remains now, really about finding a voice, taking the public stage.
Beta. Beta.
I've begun to come to the Imperial of late, and I've found it enjoyable to come to it. And in the making of this film, it seems to me that it has been highly apt that I come to it. It is called the Imperial. It still has a sort of sense of the Raj, more so than any other site in Delhi. And I am very much a product of that Raj.
बुराई मत छापना हमारे लिए ऐसे ना हम बहुत दुखिया पट्टी गरीब आदमी बुराई नहीं अक्सर प्रेस वाले आते ना तो वैसे ही करते सीन शॉट वीडियो बना के नहीं आते देखो
Each time I come to India, a certain kind of anger is always underlying, always shadowing me as I walk around or talk to people. And I think part of that kind of anger is the anger at history. It's a history which is not just Indian. I recall one of the first acts in the foundation of the empire, which was to line up the Subedar majors in Peshawar and blow them off from cannons. But it is not just Indian. The systematic genocide of the Aboriginals, of the Indians in Patagonia. This kind of systematic approach by the Europeans to wipe out whole worlds, whole peoples, in order to create a world in their own image. First came the Mughals, and they stayed. There was no sense of a home that they'd left behind, to which they would return. Then came the British, and they returned. They never had a sense of, this is the end. Here we stay. Here we rebuild another life. 80 years ago, during the First World War, many Punjabi soldiers gathered here in these barracks before being shipped off to France to fight for the British Empire. Some amongst these Punjabis who were wounded were forced to convalesce in Brighton Pavilion. In order to restrict the relationships between these wounded soldiers of the British Empire and the local population of Brighton, a stockade was built, fencing off these Punjabi soldiers from contact with the local white population. And of course, these were the heroes of the British Empire. This is Delhi for me, a city where the past and present sit next to each other without any comment whatsoever. This tomb from Akbar's time, which is the time of our own Elizabeth I, sits next to the railway from my own time, a railway which occasionally salutes the tomb with the odd toot. And in the same garden as the tomb of Akbar's father is this Sikh Gurdwara, a temple of the Sikhs, which sits next to this tomb, which is the tomb of the Muslims. And this too is a Delhi, a city made of connections between people. People's memories, people's religion, people's poetry, encased in stone and bequeathed to all of us. The Jantar Mantar Observatory is peculiar in that watching it today, it really is a site that will not sit at all uncomfortably in the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art in New York or in some zany gallery in Tokyo. And here was a civilization which had meticulously observed nature, observed the stars, and found this extraordinary way of representing it. And these extraordinary kind of dials. And so, for me, the kind of deliciousness of that particular building is that it gives you a turn. I expect to see poverty, I expect to see dust, I expect to see everything which is third world, underdeveloped. Well, come and check this place out and then think, where are you? And I think this is part of the kind of power of this landscape, that time past, time present, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, the Chinese have been here, the Romans came here. It's all in this one landscape. tomb of the Sufi saint, Nizamuddin Aulia. It's both very particular in terms of my own feeling, but also something which applies more generally. I mean, the particularity of it is that it reminds me of a small tomb that was on a railway journey between Nairobi and Mombasa. The kind of spiritual connection with the sort of Sufis is that the Sufis are in some senses very distinctly Indian. There's the kind of attitude of the Sufis, in very simple terms, is that joy, ecstasy, is a path to God, to realization, passion. So when a Qawwali is going, I mean, everyone is in this sort of ecstasy of the rhythm of the Qawwali. Amongst Hindus, there is one philosophical concept which I've always felt is extraordinary, Satchitananda. Truth is joy. Not good, not evil, but joy. And there are here two kind of different strands which connect on this soil, and which indeed have enormous meaning both for myself in terms of life in England, and also, of course, in the work. I mean, at the end of the day, all one's trying to do is to have a moment of joy, certainly in the theatre. The tomb of Ghalib, to me, I think is best summed up by his own words. हम वहाँ हैं जहाँ हमको भी कुछ हमारी खबर नहीं आती. I am in that place where I am a stranger to myself. In his time, he was living through a moment when one age was dying, the Mughal era was dying, and another age was rising, which is the British era. So he's in that kind of moment between Persian, Urdu, and English. I am in that kind of moment of transition from several Indian languages into English, and trying to kind of make some sort of sense of it. And still it seems to me that I'm a stranger to myself. For me, when I first came to India, one of the most startling things at the age of 23 was that within 2 days of being in Delhi, I was dreaming in Hindi. Now, that was shocking, to dream in a language that you had not really been conversing in naturally all the time. But I was dreaming. And for the first 4 weeks, my choice was that I can sink into this land. I was inventing histories of myself. No, I did not come from London. Yes, I came from Delhi. Yes, I was a student in Delhi. All sorts of inventions I was making of me being an Indian. Yes, India belongs to me. It is a part of me. But it is a part of me which is in a way different to those who were born in India. I can't claim it in that way. I can claim it as a kind of memory, as a kind of torch which inflames my work and my life in England. But that's what it is. Sonia is my elder sister's daughter, and it's her first visit to India. And the reactions of Sonia have been echoes in some senses of my own first journey.
Hey, I can What?
Yes. I think so. It's you.
Very good.
That's just a wedding one.
Ah, that's good. What's the ring? That's good, yeah.
Different style.
All types. And that will be a bit more flashy. We'll have some of these. नहीं यार पहले गरम तो लेने पहले नहीं यार क्या बात कर रहे हो ये तो गरम गरम आ रही है तो ये क्यों खानी है अभी
Wow.
Go, have it.
Levies up.
See what this is like.
So you're from Buckinghamshire, and you're in India. You speak like someone who's from Buckinghamshire. But if I was to ask you now, where do you think you belong? What's your feeling?
Well, if you'd asked me before February, I would have said, well, England. It's my home. It's where I've always been. Because I never, like I said, never thought of India. But having been here, I don't know.
See this? All right, what is it?
Actually making a connection. I never even thought of it. So where'd you come from? Well, I was born in London. My parents came from Africa. My parents came from India. And that was it. I never even thought of it as a place or an identity or anything. Other than we have a bit of a different religion. We speak Punjabi and Hindi. But that was it.
But what kind of connections have you made here?
Now, I understand where the religion came from, and it's very strong with Matti, and that's filtered through to Mum and my dad, and at home. I never made a connection, so now I know I associate India with something, our religion, which is the biggest thing so far.
The Nakals are a community of outsiders in India who are performers, and their particular form of theatre is to be female impersonators, to tell the great legends of the Punjab, but where men play women. What's fascinating about the Nakals is that in themselves, they seem to me to be virtually all the strands of my life. They have journeyed from one state now, Pakistan, to another, and then from there to another part of the country. And to me, I suppose it's one of those few times when I think, I wish I was an actor. I wish that was all I was doing, to act, to reproduce these millions of selves constantly. Because I think that that's sort of absolutely what a migrant is. You put on mask after mask after mask after mask. Some of the masks are funny, some are sad, some provoke, but each one is suggestive of another place, another time, another story.
Of course, you don't look at your face in the mirror, because that lies. There's a little harpy that lives inside. But when you look at the brass gong...
Neelam Mansingh Chaudhary is a friend who runs a theatre company in her back garden in Chandigarh. And a theatre company which I think is very similar to Chara. What she's trying to do is to connect rural India with urban India. The Nakals are the rural component of Neelam's company, who are working with her urban actors on a version of Jean Giraudoul's The Mad Woman of Chaillot.
The play is largely in the original set in this sort of Parisian cafe. The notion of that kind of circumscribed public space is quite foreign. In the Indian context, the public and the private shift around virtually effortlessly. And so for her, it became fascinating to try and reinvent this French vision, this French image of a cafe in an Indian context.
What I am trying to do is to connect being English with another memory which is not English.
I'm leaving the Punjab by train for Delhi and then on to London and home. Over 60 years ago, my father too left the Punjab by train somewhat like this for Delhi and then on to Bombay and by ship to Africa. Of course, unlike me, he wouldn't have traveled first class because at that time, the British would have allowed him into the first class. This was perhaps the kind of view he had, as he too looked forward to another home.
My father left the Punjab by train to go down to Bombay on his way to East Africa, where he joined East African Railways. Most of his working life was spent working on the railways plying between Mombasa and Lake Victoria. And then when he migrated here, he joined British Rail, and that is in fact where he finished his working life. In the making of this film, I think I have come closer to my father. But that's partly also because I know his time is now very short. And his memory is only of his childhood and of Africa. And I am kind of traveling down with him, down that road. So I am kind of constantly reimagining myself in his shoes, something which I had no impulse to do for a number of years. So I know I'll go to my funeral pyre with that sort of seesaw constantly in me.
What are you doing? It's rude. Stop it.
I know why you've got that snake around your neck.
Don't be stupid. Nobody knows why I've got this snake round my neck. It's my secret.
Well, I can smell your secret. Once upon a time, when your mother was a young woman, and you, Shiva, were barely...
In a number of kind of European legends, the nose appears as a mark of punishment, as a kind of moral sin. In a number of Indian and Japanese stories, the nose, a kind of extra long nose, appears in a somewhat more ambivalent light. It becomes the seat of magical properties. So what we've done is to weave together quite a number of different sources and construct a story called Sniffer Ganesh.
I won't, Shiva. Elephants never forget. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Ganesha descended down, down, down beneath the clouds. And the final sight his parents saw of their boy was the tip of his trunk as it disappeared under the clouds.
No. I mean, I couldn't live in India because I don't feel at home in India.
You feel very warm at home in Ludhiana with your aunt and all that?
Yeah, that's different. That's momentary, isn't it? I'm there on holiday, you know, people are looking after you, etc. When it actually means living there.
Ruchi, you speak Hindi better than I do.
Oh, you're right there.
Oh, yeah.
I do. That's a shock to you, isn't it?
Yes, it was.
Well, I just feel when I'm in India, you're constantly under scrutiny in terms of what you do, how you dress, how you speak, what you say. At least here, I don't have to worry about that. I do what I want to do.
You mean because you're
Go when I want to, come back when I want to.
But that's something you're saying because it's as a woman. That
No, not just as a woman. I think it's a cultural thing as well. I mean, that was my first encounter with India. I hated it because I was told I couldn't wear a skirt. You know, I wasn't to go out alone. I couldn't go to the cinema on my own. I was escorted. Absolutely awful. I did come back feeling as if I'd been imprisoned, and I thought, never again.
Being a migrant for me is to have been a changed man. I've obviously changed because I've come from India to Africa to England. And change means that I can do no other than to constantly invent a world which is comfortable for me, in which I feel at home. I think the particular place to which that I've migrated, England, also opens up another thing, which is the connections between England and India and Africa. So perhaps the most important thing about being a migrant is to be always on the move, is to be a nomad, not necessarily literally to go from place to place, but that you haven't got a fixed sense of home. It's impossible. Loss is an ever-present shadow around your heart.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.